Well, we have some show tonight from Texas to New Mexico to Monmouth County, New Jersey, to Massachusetts, to Connecticut, to New York. We have been all over the place here at Justice Served TV. Michael?
Yep, we'll have the latest on the Kelsey Fitzsimmons matter, not just what she did today, but the documents we got just before they were filed having to do with the parents or grandparents' visitation. And by the way, just one of us might be a superhero. That's all I can tell you.
Justice, where are you? Michael and Linda are here.
I love you, Linda.
The world is justice. Will we ever find justice?
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing
Will
"Oh
we know
Happy Day."
Justice when we see it. To be and down, may I lead the way. Hoping justice will win the day. Listener clues, finding justice where we can. Join us now, we're on the run. Justice is waiting, we'll see it done.
All right, then. Welcome to, what is it, Tuesday night? Yeah, just a very weird, long day.
Yeah, I feel like I've been back for about 6 weeks between last night and today. And then everything that's happening, Michel Bryant, you were on the road so early and I was watching you. And then, you know, I learned a new skill. Missy taught me how to pull a stream in, and I had to thank law girls, not attorneys, and then there's something else that goes.
A due process. Amanda and Josie, and that's where this comes in. Look at that. They made this. Isn't that amazing?
Look at that. You are a superhero.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
I mean, I can recognize this part right here. After that, it gets a little shaky. But
not only that, you know, I had
girls.
to say it was a joint effort, right? Because they streamed and used our microphone.
Right, we worked that out. Just to have better audio, because even the guy that was there from the more traditional media, they're lazy, and he didn't mic the lectern, and this is probably more than anybody cares to know, but I go in there, and the last couple of times Tim Bradel has spoken from the defense table, right? And as we know, in Massachusetts, you have the Commonwealth nearest the bench, and then the row behind is the defense, but then they also have a lectern off to the left as you're looking at the bench, off to the left. And so I went to the clerk, who gave me so much help last time when we were trying to figure out, okay, who's going to do this, who's not, because their position is, if more than one person requests it, I always do, not because I want to do the streaming, but because somebody should, and I don't want to walk in there and go, oh, what, nobody requested it? So law girls, not attorneys, generally are doing it as well, and that's how we collaborate, because the court says, we're not going to decide who's doing it. You guys figure that out. So I went up to the clerk to just thank her for the last time. And I said, by the way, where is the best place I'm going to put this microphone? First, assuming you're okay with it. And she said, well, they normally come up to this lectern, but last time Tim Bradel ignored me and he stayed at the table. And I said, I just want to put the microphone. I got a 50-50 shot here. I just want to put it at the right place. And so I went out and asked Tim, and he said, well, yeah, I'm just going to stay here at the table. Cool. Then he goes to the clerk and comes back to me and says, I'm going to go to the lectern. So obviously the clerk won that practical consideration. And so that's where it was mic'd, and that's why it was clean. And I don't know why the affiliate that's there doesn't just drag a microphone over there. I don't know, but you got to hear it. I mean, seeing it is great, but hearing it's also very nice.
Yeah, it was also really interesting a stream when we get to talking to it, because there was a lot of like black space, because I guess when the judge went off the bench to let the attorneys consult, it just went black. And then I would see comments that would say, well, they're not streaming very well because it's black.
Yeah.
Well, this is like the fan. When it turned black, it was like the double fan and the Dedham courtroom and the Sacco Vanzetti courtroom.
And what they were doing, as I understand it, was, as Amanda and Josie were doing that, when the court basically took a quick recess, they just shut down. And then it came back up at some point beforehand. And just practically speaking, what happened was the attorney said, look, we do have some discovery issues, Judge. We're trying to figure out. I think we've got it all pretty much handled. Then they dropped that little nugget that I fully anticipated, which was February 9th is going to be a problem.
Thank gosh.
Which I was hoping was going to be a problem.
TV.
So it turns out they didn't have to make it an issue over discovery, because Commonwealth had some, trial calendaring problems. Like, I'm going to be in a murder trial still. And so bottom line, they pushed it to March 23rd. and February 9th will be a discovery compliance deadline. So there will be an appearance then, but it will be pretty much just to make sure there aren't any leftover discovery disputes. So
they should be doing those by Zoom, quite frankly. I mean, there's no such dragging people and wasting their time anymore on that. I mean, that's ridiculous. We see it done in cases involving how many attorneys is in the Academy, like 57,000.
Yes, and maybe that's a factor. Kidding, I mean, I think they're up to 18 or 19, and maybe that's a factor. They don't want to drag but here you have basically one. Well, you have two, because you have Martha Coakley, who was also there today. She didn't speak. But so they have two plus the local folks. So maybe they think, you might as well come in. I know in the past that they've been happy to come in because Kelsey Fitzsimmons was in custody. So, however they might get to actually see her, talk to her, they were happy to come in and do that. So.
Right. Anyone who is away, shall we say, is always happy to go to court, even though they have to have breakfast at 3 o'clock and they're on the road at 4 and they're in the lockup by 5. They're just happy to get out of their surroundings. It always happens that way. But anyhow, while I was watching you, and then I know you went running back home, but you have an exclusive that we'll talk about. But I think we have a number of a lot of things.
Yes. So just to let folks, we'll circle back to the Fitzsimmons. We have the little interview from post hearing, and then we have the documentation filed just today.
And exclusive. You have some exclusives.
Well, it was handed to me just before it was filed. So this depends on how quickly they docket it, but I don't know that it's available for anybody yet, because they usually have a little delay in docketing. That's where I get the exclusive, and we'll go over it. It's basically the grandparents replying to Justin the alien, saying he wants their request for visitation dismissed, which we went through in some detail. His arguments are horrible. They rebut those, and we'll get into that. But first,
okay, rip and read. Let me just give you, because I'm not going to start with the TMZ thing. I'm actually going to start with this. Okay, this is my home county. This is Monmouth County, New Jersey. This is the courthouse, the Freehold courthouse. Bruce Springsteen would eat pizza in Freehold. Okay, that's Federici's Pizza. Or if you're a Bruce Springsteen fan, Freehold, Federici's Pizza. This actually has wings on it. This courthouse. This is the old one. A lot of important trials have been there. Bill Kunstler tried an important case there involving civil rights. There was a very high-profile murder case in the 50s involving Lee Bailey, and then the 70s involving Lee Bailey. Freehold, New Jersey, you may think it's a small, sleepy county. It's not. Monmouth County is a huge county. It's where I was a prosecutor. I was a trial team leader. I tried a death penalty case, and it's where I grew up. I love Monmouth County. I'm a Jersey girl through and through. Well, there's a major case going on there right now by the name of Paul Canaro. He's about 8 years old now. He's accused of a horrible murder of his brother and his brother's wife and his two nieces, 6 and 11, one of them by stabbing them in the eye. So the question is he that type of person? Or the defense is pointing out that there may be a third-party culprit, another brother. Well, Justice Serve TV has been all over this. I talked to a number of sources today, and we'll be able to report about not who our sources are, but what our sources said to you. And that will be our first exclusive into the Paul Canaro case in Monmouth County, New Jersey, tomorrow, Wednesday night at 6 is either all or part of the show. So stay tuned for Justice Serve TV. And when we give you sources, just like we did in ASAP Rocky, okay, take it right to the bank. In
the words of Alan Jackson, take this to the bank. And for those who don't know, it's allegedly a financial issue that motivated these crimes. So
that's although today the financial testimony was just like the judge even said.
That's just it.
The judge said to the attorneys, look, if I'm not getting this, you can be sure the jurors over there aren't getting. What the heck are you doing? But he's a great judge, Judge Lemieux. He's giving everybody very free rein to try their case.
Yeah, I noticed yesterday. I don't know if I were the prosecution, I don't think I would have started with some of this financial stuff, which they began yesterday, day one, because it makes it sound like it's a business records case, which will put people to sleep quickly.
Oh, quickly.
I think they should have started with something sexier, more dramatic, and then they could have worked into the money stuff.
Yeah,
but hey, they're trying their case.
Yeah, and then you can read about it for those who don't know. There's a Colts Neck. It's a very exclusive area. John Stewart has a farm there. Many rich people have mansions there. It was burned down. The murders were there. And then allegedly he came back to his own house, tried to light his own house on fire, which is near my law office, partner's law office, by the way. To try to cover his crime. That's the prosecution theory. We'll get into that more tomorrow night, and I'm sure as the case proceeds over the next 2 months. All right. So that's what I have. You have Uvalde to talk about, right?
Yeah, just a quick update because we began following this in a little more detail last week. And so just as an update, the last day and a half have been pretty harsh testimony from the two teachers most involved in this case, which involved the death of 19 children, fourth and fifth graders, and 2 teachers, many others wounded. And so it was one of the just the most gut-wrenching testimony where they're talking about the encounter with the shooter and the wounds that the surviving teachers testifying, suffered, and all that goes along with that. So this is such important testimony if you're the prosecution, because you're building on the sympathy that you want this jury to take with them into the deliberation room when they find Adrian Gonzalez guilty, if you prove your case. I've thought from the very beginning, the line the judge draws in terms of prejudice over probative value as it relates to this defendant is going to be key to this trial, to the verdict, and to whatever appeal may come if there is a conviction. Because this stuff, there has to be a point at which it's irrelevant. It just too much. It's just too prejudicial. So right now, though, there's
all the dead children.
It's obviously he's charged with child endangering or child endangerment. Max 2 years per charge, 29 charges, 58 years on the line here. And so you do have to at least establish for the jury that what was the danger that he was protecting them from? Well, death. Yes, we get that. But how far you have to go into that, how much detail, how much, they've limited autopsy photos. But today, or either late yesterday or early today, when this one witness was on the stand, they're reading off the names of each of these kids. And this one teacher actually has pictures of them on his fence still 3 years later. And he went through each and every one of those. She did not survive. He did not survive. Just grueling, brutal, heart-wrenching stuff. So
yeah.
we'll see.
Heart-wrenching stuff. So we'll be picking that up. We'll be picking that up also this week. And then big news today. Yesterday, apparently on Friday, there was an arrest warrant issued from an actor that a lot of you know. Timothy Busfield, also a director, charged with molesting. I'm going to use just a common law word. 2 children on a set. The question is, this whole issue of molesting came up, and his wife is a famous actress, Melissa Gilbert. She's there in this picture. Thank you for Mercury News for letting us use this picture, giving credit to you. And she apparently, before I get into that, a couple weeks ago got into an argument with Megyn Kelly over the issue of Megyn Kelly saying that Epstein really wasn't a pedophile because he liked 15-year-olds. And she said, well, 15-year-old is not pedophilia, which led me to then and they ended up being with a huge fight over this, led me having to go into the DSM, which is a diagnostic and statistical manual as to what actually characterizes as pedophilia. And there is an age that it becomes pedophilia versus something busmenophilia and other philia and all, and liking small kids, and you don't want to read all this, but that went in there. And then when the arrest warrant was issued, a federal warrant charging Timothy Busfield with this abuse of 2 children, twins on his set in a movie, Megyn Kelly said, now I know why you were going after me for Epstein. And so Megyn Kelly was on talking about Melissa Gilbert being a bad person, and that she did this because she knew there were going to be charges against her husband, and that's why she was fighting with Megyn Kelly. So there's this whole backstory leading to the fact that Timothy Busfield was missing in action from like Saturday until today. But today he did turn himself in. And I have to remove other media from the stage, I am told, before I present this.
Yeah, that Mercury News, that was my hometown paper. It's from the South Bay. And he was, I don't know if he still is, but was in the Central Valley when the show, like 30 something, was a major hit, which is where most people remember him from.
So, yeah. So anyhow, he turned himself in. Let me see if I can now play this. I have to add it to the stage. Oh, Missy, this is like, there's let me see if I can enlarge, because I did do this right. I do have it in just like I did today. I shared my screen.
It looks like it's ready to roll.
It looks like it's ready to roll. Let's see, save, edit, shared screen name.
Just to Serve TV, brought to you by TMZ.
Brought to you by. Okay, let me see if I can do this again. But you may then get an ad if I bring this.
Let's find out.
If I bring
what's the worst that could happen?
Well, it says not. It says the screen is fine. It says the screen is fine. So I guess the question is, where's the press button?
It's down at the bottom left. Can you see that little arrow down there?
Yeah, I see it, but hey, nothing there. Nothing's happening to this.
Let me see if I can fire it off. Although I shouldn't be able to.
You shouldn't be able to. Yeah.
I can't.
You can't fire it off.
No, I can't. I can't fire it off.
So let me while you talk about this. But he did turn himself in. Well, I mean, I think at one of 2 days. Let me find. And
he has denied. He's proclaimed his innocence, though.
Here's
correct.
TMZ, right? He's proclaimed his innocence.
Okay.
I enlarge
get that out
it.
there.
If I do it, all right. I can't actually. It says stop sharing. Wait! I heard something.
Hi, everybody. It's Tim. I'm sure most of you know that are watching this that I was ordered to come to Albuquerque. I'm here now. I got the call Friday night. I had to get a lawyer. Saturday, I got in a car. We drove 2,000 miles to Albuquerque. I'm going to confront these lies. They're horrible. They're all lies. And I did not do anything to those little boys. And I'm going to fight it. I'm going to fight it with a great team. And I'm going to be exonerated. I know I am, because this is all so wrong and all lies. So hang in there. And hopefully I'm out real soon. And back to work. And I love everybody for supporting me. Thank you.
Okay.
So you have to
thank you, TMZ.
Yes. So you have to wonder.
Whoa! Yeah. What?
Hey! Whoa! You have to wonder. I mean, I haven't read enough of the backstory, but it's such a specific allegation that you have to wonder if it's not true. What would motivate somebody to make those allegations? We obviously is innocent until proven guilty, but you just wonder: is there some money motivation here? Is it? And how old were these twins that were on the project?
Yeah, I forget. I read it, but
because you mentioned the DSM, I wondered. And obviously, that's a psychological difference in terms of age, but from a criminal perspective, if you're under 18, you can
I have it all here.
Category.
You sent it to them to read it here, but this was I picked up the screen. I picked up the video, and obviously he took a lesson from Jerome Powell and said, okay, I'm going right to the people with the video to tell you that I'm not guilty. All right. Jerome Powell's the chairman of the Fed and is in the.
Okay. Well, let the process play out.
Let the process play out. Absolutely. And then people are saying, well, Melissa Gilbert was on the phone listening. And so she has a team, not a team of lawyers, but a public relations team from what I've read. And right now she's not making any further comments on this. All right. So that's our rip and read. A lot going on, but you see our future. I read our future. Oh, hi, Tubi. Tubi just broke open the door. Tubi the poodle. He was a little bit upset that I left him outside. So if I read our future, if this is a crystal ball, I read our future.
There's definitely something in there. Yep.
Okay.
So let's do this. Let's start with the post hearing today. First of all, let's talk about the hearing. A little more than what we did earlier. Salem, Massachusetts, in front of Judge McCarthy Naaman, who's been much kinder than she appeared in that audio-only hearing that led to Kelsey Fitzsimmons' incarceration. The charge against Kelsey is assault with a deadly weapon. She's going to have a trial. It was pushed from February 9th to March 23rd. They appeared today to talk about discovery. Pretty much could have been done without the court's help, to be honest with you. It could have been done with a couple of phone calls, but nonetheless gave us a chance to see Kelsey for the first time since she had been released. Remember the day she was released, it was kind of a disheveled moment. So now she's had a few weeks to kind of, get used to her new life, which is kind of a weird combination of her old life, but not quite complete because the baby is still not in it. So let's look at, this was just a couple of moments after they got done with the hearing, and we had a chance to talk with them outside, and this is kind of how it went.
Which courthouse is this? Everybody gets a chance.
Oh, this is, this is Salem. So it's Essex County Superior Court in Salem.
Everybody gets a chance, I promise. So today was not unexpected. We knew the prosecutor had a few things on his plate. We're more concerned right now about getting the discovery. That's a back and forth process. We're all pretty experienced attorneys, so we don't really need to involve the court at this point in fighting about anything. I think the prosecutor is trying to get us everything he can get us. That will determine what moves we make after we get all of their discovery. And so it goes. So we're moving along. There's a lot of avenues to explore. And that's about it. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, before we get to that, I don't know if you can hear in the background this incessant beep.
Yes.
Beep. You won't believe what that is and how long it's been going on. That's an alarm that is in the lobby of the courthouse. That has been doing that since before the last hearing, which was weeks ago. And so I'm asking the guy in security, I said, you still haven't fixed that? And he's like, the security people and the maintenance people, they say, just leave it alone. And he said at the time, we used to turn it off or reset it, and 30 seconds later, it would come back on. So they listen to that all day, every day, while the court is open, and nobody seems to have a clue how to stop the beeping. So
this is the government.
I get it. Government in action.
Okay.
And that's one word, inaction. Okay, so here we go.
You had first said, I remember, a 2-day trial estimate. Today I heard 3 days. Anything change?
Yeah, 2 or 3 days, plus or minus. We have to decide a lot of things, and it depends on what discovery we get. It depends on what they're saying, what they're not saying, how they say it. So.
Is it too early to think about witnesses? How many witnesses, or who's going to be a witness?
We have a pretty good idea, I think, both sides, about who the principal witnesses are. There's 4 or 5 officers that are of concern here. We have some people, we're looking at some potential experts. Nothing we want to really disclose just yet, but we really need to get everything from the Commonwealth before we make those decisions. And under the rules, we don't have to disclose anything until they've given us all their cards, so to speak. So.
Do you anticipate any issues? I know there's going to be a follow-up date on the 9th, which was the original trial date.
Yeah. You gotta leave everything on the table. We have to see what we have. We just got 10 gigabytes of, I'm not even sure what it is, video, photography today. There's been a few files of training records we're gonna look at. So it's a process. We're going through it right now. And it'll dictate what our next move is. So.
You indicated you were going to be filing some Rule 17 motions. Anything you can say about it?
Yeah, Charlie, so we're looking at the prior department, the Lawrence Police Department. And we may have some information we're going to be seeking from there in terms of the departure of the officer at issue and some of the training. We want to know what kind of training these officers received relative to the use of force, relative to de-escalation, things like that are going to be a serious issue here.
Quick question for Kelsey, if you don't mind. Just wondering how you feel one way or another, or do you feel one way or another about the trial being delayed, if you were kind of hoping to get it over with in February, or if you're saying sort of more of the mind that it takes however long it takes?
I would love to get it over with. I want to put it behind me, because as soon as I do that, it's one step closer to be reunited with my son. So that's how I feel about that. But I do know that it's a process, and that if it has to get extended, it's probably for a good reason too.
And then anything else you want people watching this to know about your situation, about your case in general, that you might feel wasn't represented properly, or just something that you want people to, anything you want people to know in general?
I think there's been a lot of misrepresentations, and it will all be very clear once I get my day.
Kelsey, how do you feel about today versus the other appearances you've made? Quite a different feeling, I would think.
I get nervous every time I come here because of past times, so I get nervous being here.
She's under a lot of restrictions and you know, kind of an unprecedented number of restrictions that each one carries with it all sorts of sub-issues that we have to be very concerned about. So I don't blame her one bit for being concerned about, you know, every little aspect of her release terms. So it's an ongoing issue. The government increasingly puts defendants under the grip of various technologies like the scram, the bracelet, and we get, any practitioner will tell you that it's not infallible. We get calls from our clients that, you know, they're being accused of being outside the bracelet range when they're laying at home asleep in bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, the technology is not great, and there's often a presumption on the part of probation or the courts that if the technology says you did something or didn't do it, that's gospel, and that's not the case at all. So I don't blame Kelsey one bit for being concerned about this stuff. We're trying to keep a close eye on it. We're trying to work with these technology providers are pretty cooperative, but you know, in the end, if the bracelet's saying you're doing something wrong, that's all of us immediately. The defense is in a hole that they have to crawl out of. It's not fair. So,
Kelsey, how are you feeling? How's your health?
I'm okay.
Getting better?
Yeah.
I also have a question for Kelsey. How's Maverick? Maverick's great. Was he excited to see you when you came home?
Yes.
That's the dog.
Very excited.
How was it being home for the holidays and being able to rest a bit?
It was a tough adjustment, going from like being in jail to just all of a sudden being home. It was a really weird adjustment, and I think I'm still adjusting, but I'm okay.
So as always, guys, we want to thank everybody for being here. You know, the supporters mean the world to us. You know, the sunshine, Martha and I were talking before she came out here, that the sunshine on this case from the media is really important. And we are really gratified that you're all here paying attention to this. It means the world to us.
Yeah. Thank you for supporting me.
Thanks, guys.
Before, just for those who may not be familiar, here on the far left is Stephen. That's her natural dad. And then I think I pull away so we can't see him. Let me back up just a skosh here. And then in the backdrop here you have, there's Lauren, mom. And then, hold on, there's Will. That's the stepdad. So the whole gaggle was there, as they have been for virtually all of these appearances. So anyway, so you know, it's moving forward. She seems very like she has her head screwed on straight. You know, like she understands the process, and I'm sure the best thing she could have heard today was, yeah, we're on for the 9th, because in her mind, great, trial's over. Now I can get my son back, or at least get visitation. But she also realizes if my attorneys are pushing that date, there's got to be a good reason for it. Some of the reasons that we've talked about before include, you know, these cops. The testimony is going to be pretty interesting, because some of us believe there is a little shenanigans going on between the cops and the fire department, a la Justin the Alien, because why in the world would he come to the scene of the child, I say abduction, but turning over the child? Why isn't Child Protective Services there? And then they call him and they meet at some undisclosed other location. Why throw him into the fire like that? It's like throwing gasoline onto the situation. So I think they want to get into that with some of these cops to find out what communications took place between them prior to. And I think that's going to be very interesting.
Wow, really interesting. Wow. The way she said, though, I'm all right, was very tentative.
Yeah, it wasn't.
You know?
She didn't sell it. Yeah, you're right. She didn't sell it. and I'm sure her whole world is still upside down, you know, especially no matter what she does, if she is getting better physically, her son is out there, you know,
Right.
and now for a longer period of time than he was with her. So now, speaking of the boy.
Speaking of the boy, I think that's a song. Speaking of the boy, that sounds like a song.
Yeah. Let's look at what I got today from the GrandParents/parents, and I pointed them out in part so we could, you know, put a sort of a face on the document here. Let me see if I can go a little larger. There we go. So we have Lauren Page's natural mom, William Page's stepdad, against Justin Alien, and of course Kelsey is listed here because she's the parent. So it's not like it's adversarial, but she has to be listed there. Yeah. So this is interesting. Give me your thoughts on this. They're handling this pro se, and in my experience, you see this a lot in family law. And you and I have talked about why we don't do family law, but we do know enough to know that there's not a lot of money involved in terms of, hey, let me get an attorney to take this case on a contingency. There's none of that motivation for representation, which means you're going to be paying out of pocket, right? And so a lot of folks in these family law scenarios can't afford to or don't want to spend what it would cost. So they go pro se. So, and that's what we have here. So we talk about the background real briefly. And we'll go to their affidavits as well. But I highlighted some of the tidbits. The argument they make.
Apparently, the document is documented according to our chat, but not the affidavits.
Oh, okay. And we'll go into those too. I got home about 30 minutes before we went on, so I took a quick look and highlighted some of the stuff. But the argument, as with any brief, is how you start out, and they've cited the certain case law and the reason a complaint should not be. First of all, let's put this in procedural posture here. They file for a request for visitation. Justin the alien files a request for dismissal of that request, and that's posture as it stands now. They file this basically to defeat his motion to dismiss. Okay, so they cite the law. A complaint should not be dismissed unless it appears beyond doubt that the plaintiff can prove no set of facts in support of the claim that would entitle them to relief. In other words, it's a pretty broad review by the court, and it is family court. So, you know, unlike other courts, they go off the grid a few times. You know, they are not handcuffed by the law. They're handcuffed by what? Best interest of the child.
The child, right.
So they can morph the law however they might feel is appropriate. Remember, one of the arguments from Justin the alien was that Will Page is not the natural grandfather. And we talked about this. I don't remember. This might have been when you were gone. We went through this paperwork.
We went when I was gone, but you and I also talked about it in general, what the arguments would be, because there are some states that do recognize the grandparents, and even the adoptive grandparents is not a good way to say it, but the
non-paternal,
the non-paternal grandparent. Yeah.
And because, you know, in our society now, it's almost rare that you have the natural parents or grandparents. There's a lot of mixing and matching going on, right? And so what we talked about at the time was that, you know, so what if he is not, because Lauren Page is. And if you want to sanitize him from the pleadings to make people happy, go ahead. But the court's more likely to review him anyway because he's at the house, right?
Right.
So it's not like they're going to look at Lauren Page in a vacuum. They're still going to look at him. So whether he's the natural or paternal grandfather or not, you know, it's almost a distinction without a difference as long as one of them is, and he's part of the mix.
Because remember, when she gets released, last week, was it 2 weeks ago? They had to go do an inspection of the house that she's going to live in, which is
where he lives. Yeah, where they both live. Yeah,
they both live. Right.
The probation department. That was one of the conditions of McCarthy naming during a quick recess. They had to go do that, and luckily, Chief Probation Officer January, also known as Tuesday, he worked that out quickly, and they got it done in the time that they needed, and that could have been a major delay. So under A, the petitioners have standing. That gets to the point we were just making. The statute applies here. Parents were never married, do not reside together, and the mother is currently without parenting time per the court's temporary order. This relates to the code section they cite. Contrary to the father's assertions, as of course is Justin the alien, the petitioners did not mislead the court. He made it sound like in his paperwork, they're lying. They're saying William Page is the natural grandfather. The affidavits and the motion for temporary orders describe the petitioner as the maternal grandfather and biological grandparents in a functional sense. And again, for family law purposes, that can be more important, right? You can have a paternal grandfather that is horrible, right? And that in and of itself doesn't give you anything. So they're pointing that out. Even if 39D is interpreted strictly to require biological relation, which the statute does not explicitly mandate, the probate and family court has broad equity jurisdiction to grant visitation to non-biological family members. Where? When it serves the child's best interests. And if you keep that mantra in your head, you'll never go wrong when it comes to family court.
Unfortunately, family courts could go wrong because if Kelsey is away from the child because she was in jail and then she had a trial and there's a year in between, they may say it's the best interest of the child that it doesn't go back to the mother. So it can work both ways. Yeah. The best interest of the child can work against the mother when it shouldn't, or the father.
It's going to be quite the test for Judge Mary Black, who seems to be perfectly reasonable. Because she's going to be making that call at some point, hopefully sooner rather than later. I'd say early summer, maybe now with the March trial date, depending on the outcome of the trial. Because obviously, if she's acquitted, the process will speed up dramatically. If she's found guilty, then there's going to be pre-sentencing reports, and I mean all those things are going to drag it out. I would be shocked if she ever spent a day in jail, even if convicted, but you never know. And she does have 100 some days of time served at this point. I could definitely see, if guilty, a time served, sentence with probation. Blixt, yeah, Blixt is the seminal case in Massachusetts for these kinds of cases. They held that the grandparents must rebut the presumption that a fit parent's decision against visitation is valid by alleging, with particularity, in a verified complaint or affidavit, that denial would cause the child significant harm. Harm may arise from disrupting a significant pre-existing relationship, or where visitation is necessary to protect the child from significant harm. One of the weird things about this case is, and we saw this in Justin the Alien's motion to dismiss, he's saying, look, hey, the last 4 or 5 months, they've had zero contact. Any idea why that is?
Yeah, because she was in jail because
and then he wouldn't allow the grandparents' visitation.
And he wouldn't allow the grandparents' visitation. So this is where.
And then you look at, okay, so that's the first 4 months of the child's life, right?
Right.
Now, having a new granddaughter that is barely 2 months old, right? The first couple of months, it's pretty sparse anyway. Partly it's because you don't want to necessarily expose the young infant to a lot of people, right? Because of immunity issues and young life. So that, to me, that takes the 4 months and makes it maybe 3 in terms of how much interaction you might be able to really have. Okay. And so we have this, and we'll look at the affidavit, but it talks about, as I highlight here, interactions include babysitting 2 to 3 times for evenings out, hosting family dinners every Sunday lasting 2 to 4 hours, daily, weekly visits for a 4-month-old infant. Such consistent involvement constitutes a significant pre-existing relationship of close bonding from which harm is inherent in the disruption. Every time I read through this stuff and everything I read from his opposition, I just keep saying, why? Why do you want to keep, what is wrong with the grandparents? Give me something that suggests, oh, they're crackheads. Oh, okay, well, then maybe they shouldn't be around this young baby. But what is the motivation? Is it just evil? Is it spite? Is it so much anger toward Kelsey that he doesn't want any connection within the family to be near that child? It's rhetorical in some sense because I don't know. I've not seen anything. Okay. Significant harm. The affidavits allege with particularity that denial would cause harm to the child's emotional well-being and development. And we'll see that in the affidavits. But the affidavits are pretty straightforward. You know, they set forth as they need to, under penalty of perjury, the concerns they have, the contact they had, and why they think the lack of contact hurts the child. This is not speculation. It plausibly suggests harm beyond the father's care, rebutting the presumption of Blixt. The child, now 10 months old, has spent over, and you know, I know it's supposed to say more than, I can't help my grammar police on that one.
I know you are.
The child, now 10 months old, has spent more than half his life without the petitioners, exacerbating potential attachment issues. The petitioners,
well, wait a second. So
yes.
you assumed they were going to exacerbate because you didn't give them a chance to see their own grandchild.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like terrible.
It is, and that's why I keep circling back to what's the motivation just to shut them totally out, unless it's just purely the connection. He's trying to cut off any connection with Kelsey.
That's right.
The father's fitness is not an issue raised by the petitioners, but Blixt requires only showing harm from a specific decision. The petitioners' 3-month filing delay, and this was something that was brought up by the father. Hey, they didn't even do anything for 3 months. You know, post June 30th was the day they took the child, and then the grandparents for 3 months did nothing before the actual filing. So he points that out. The petitioner's 3-month filing delay reflects caution during sensitive proceedings, not lack of concern. Updates from the father were minimal and unsolicited, not responsive to requests, because he also mentioned that they would get a little nugget. You know, here's a little breadcrumb, here's how everybody's doing. And then they would respond, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it. So he tried to use that against them.
Because they're trying not to exacerbate the situation and get him angry at them, hoping that things can work out. I mean, you see what's happening here, unless you're maybe Judge Naiman, who doesn't. Thank God she doesn't have this case.
Oh, my God. The child's thriving under early intervention does not negate harm from lost bonds. These averments are facially sufficient, detailed, and sourced from personal knowledge, warranting denial of dismissal and citing the Martinez case. For the foregoing reasons, petitioner respectfully requests that the Honorable Court deny the father's motion to dismiss and allow the petition to proceed along with such further relief as the court deems just. Verification signed under penalty of perjury, blah, blah, blah. So let's take a look at those. Look, I got them before they were even signed. Wait a minute. But they were signed and filed. Okay, so here we have Williams' affidavit. Pretty basic. Here's who I am. Husband of Lauren Page, et cetera, et cetera. Number 3, I am not Caden's. And we haven't really talked, we don't really use the young boy's name, but it's public. I'm not the biological grandparent and have never intended to misrepresent that fact. Been in committed relationship with my wife, Lauren, the mom, for more than 15 years, married in 2022, et cetera, et cetera. Consistent parental figure in Kelsey's life since childhood. Number 5, I was part of an established family structure prior to the boy's birth, and my involvement in his life developed naturally with the knowledge and acceptance of both parents, which is interesting because it makes it sound like, you know, if there had been an issue, why didn't Justin the alien bring it up in that first 4 months if he was against the grandparents being with the son, right? Then you might have a better argument. But he doesn't mention that. He mentions that what they did was not significant enough, but that's different than, hey, I didn't want them anywhere near the baby from day one.
Right.
6, from February 16 through 2020, that's when the child was born, through approximately June 30th, the day the child was abducted. He was regularly brought to their house. Number 7, I actively participated in his care, including holding, feeding, soothing, and engaging with him during visits. I formed a genuine bond with the boy during a critical stage of infancy. And then number 9, of course, was when the extraction took place. 10, the sudden loss of family caregivers during infancy posed a risk to emotional security. These are obviously, in an affidavit, you know, these are self-serving statements, let's face it, right? You know, these are the court's going to have to make that determination. But, you know, you throw it out there and let the court decide if it's worth, you know, considering or not. But you're going to say, of course, taking this child away from us is harmful to the child. You're going to say that.
And then so will a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Yes. Yeah,
and the bonding of a child to the family early on is very important.
Yep. And I think number 12 was important. I respect the father's parental authority and will comply with any conditions ordered by the court. So it's important for them to make sure that the court understands this. There's no ongoing animosity here if we just get some visitation. Okay, then we have the mom, Lauren, really articulating the same exact hands-on contact with the little boy. I think she has a little more detail. Number 5, I provided frequent hands-on caregiving, including feeding, holding, soothing, and comforting him. Through this repeated and consistent caregiving, he became familiar with my voice, my touch, my presence, forming an attachment during infancy, and knowing how grandmothers are, having to live with one who now has I have 2 granddaughters, 20 months and 2 months. Sometimes I think Lisa thinks she's the mom. So I know that connection with the grandmother is very strong. I understand that.
I know she's forgotten you.
Yeah. Well, I'm just further down. I'm further down the pecking order.
You're further down the chain.
Yeah.
Domino, maybe
Domino's just above me. Yeah.
Than you.
On or about June 30th, 2025, all contact between me and my grandson abruptly ceased, etc. So there you have it. We know there's a hearing set for this case in August, and hopefully this will be resolved much sooner than that. But
I assume that the court's going to assign a court-appointed psychologist or health professionals to evaluate and do the evaluation and give reports. You may even have a situation where the child gets appointed a guardian that does that.
Yeah, some sort of guardian ad litem. And it's, you've made this point before, and it's so critical with the baby. You can't. It's not like even a 3, 4, 5-year-old. You can't talk to the child and get a sense of who they're comfortable with and who they miss. And what do you got to go on?
Well, all you have to go on is that they haven't seen the grandparents, and so here, baby, to grandparents.
And then if the baby cries,
the baby cries, right? Because they haven't seen, and it's a scary face, right?
No, I know.
I mean that, and then you got to be careful about that because you don't know, whether or not the health professionals will say, "Oh, well, we have to reintroduce them slowly because the baby's screaming and it's not good for the baby's mental health." And that's where all this delay helps the father.
Yeah, and it is that inverse proposition is just so unfair, and it just reinforces to me. Doing the wrong thing, you get rewarded for.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So, Michael, you made your, 25th trip up to Massachusetts today. I think I've lost count somewhere about that. Anything any of you can do to help Michael in his travails. I think Missy has a Venmo and a PayPal and a Cash App and whatever, please join in if you feel that you can help Justice Served TV. But the biggest way you can help us right now is hit that subscribe, like, share, notify button. Now, yesterday we had, by the way, a very, very hot button topic show. We had a show that dealt with law, but apparently politics gets in the way of anything you deal with the police shooting, especially these days dealing with ICE. So Justice Served TV had to post shall we say, we pinned to our comments section, because while all of you in the chat were just wonderful and respectful and all, after the show ended, there was a lot of disrespect and a lot of agita, bad mouthing. So here's what we posted. I'm going to read it. Here at Justice Served TV, we don't count out the threats or nasty comments. The vitriol of some of the commenters weren't present when Brian Koberger didn't get the death for killing 5 innocent students. This case, while political, should and will be decided on the law. Each side may disagree, but to suggest that any person on this panel does not know the law of excessive force is applied may be time to examine your own biases. A woman was shot in the head in front of all of us. How about acting like the panel who discussed their feelings and law honestly with each other and follow their lead? If you can't, please listen to another channel. We are not here for political barbs, the JSTV team. And then, of course, what happens? You get like 5 political barbs underneath it and all. If you don't want to know what the law is, go to another channel. Believe me, there are a lot of people out there who don't know what they're talking about, who get their law degree out of a Cracker Jack box, or who pretend to be lawyers who never even set foot in a law school. So I will repeat that. Thank you for our subscribers who generally are terrific.
They're great,
But
yeah.
some interlopers who came in and were interloping and being provocateurs were not. We can all agree to disagree, and what is ever going to happen on this case, there may be a moral component, there may be a legal component, but at least our panel stayed on target.
And thanks to Karen K. Schmidt. I just named her Karen, apparently. Gifting 5 Justice Sir TV memberships. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And I guess they're like handed out like that, right? Just like
they're just handed out like that. All of you get it, and people love them because they're expensive. They're $2.99 a month. And given that, I'm going to try to set up on Thursday, maybe Thursday or Friday morning, the second Who Killed Stephanie Vilko. I've been reaching out to the people that have emailed us that have been really involved to try to get a date that they can participate. That's what the delay is. And if we don't do it this week, we'll do it next week. So,
all right.
boy.
And then tomorrow, again, we're going to dip into Canaro and kind of get ready for that extravaganza, which is it's an intense case, long time in the making.
Yeah, and updates on Uvalde and whatever else may happen, because every single day there seems to be something in the legal news that's just amazing. And you never know what's going to happen on this case.
Yeah.
You know, or on any of these related cases. Karen Reed gave her first interview. We haven't even gone through that yet.
That's true. We haven't. And of course, next week is Aidan Carney's mega motion that's been cut in half to be just the recusal motion. That'll be a week from Friday.
Right.
So we'll be up there for that, of course. All righty then. So that's all I got for you.
That's all you have. All right. Anyone else have anything for us? Any other questions for us? All of you, thank you very much for commenting. We appreciate your being with us and hope that you will join us again tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. In the meantime, hit that subscribe, like, share, notify button. Let me give you a second to do that. Subscribe, like, share, notify button. Let's get to 34,000 subscribers.
And I'll wait. Okay, plenty of time. All right then. Hey, try to do the right thing.